Welcome to another episode of Roast My Solves. My current goal is to make the most in-depth solve critiques that the industry has ever seen. And today we're going to be looking at Leo's 17.30-second average of 5. Now, if you would like to have your solves critiqued, all you need to do is click the first link in description, which should take you to my free private community. Click join and I'll reach out to you with further details on how to send your solves through. For your first solve, not only did it take you more than 8 moves, but you actually rotated more than twice to solve your cross. And so, seeing that orange is already inserted, holding red in front of me, I would have gone U prime, F2, push U, L2 to insert blue, and then I would have gone, for this edge, I would have gone R prime, wide U, R prime, wide U prime. And that's exactly 8 moves. Your first pair was these two, and you did a U prime, rotated, and then you split them up and inserted them into the back, which is good. And then you notice these two for your next pair. And I think you had a recognition problem here because you went U, then you went U2 prime, then you went U2, then another U2 prime, then you did this to split them up and pair them up, and then you insert it into the back, which is good. But what I do want to talk about are your finger tricks. So if you are going to use F moves, especially in a case like this, during F2L, what you did was you pinch F'd, then you overworked your index finger by doing a U right after it came from the F. So what I would have done is done F and then push U, then F prime. So that way my index finger does not get overused. For your next pair, you saw these two, and to insert them into this slot, you did that, and then this wide move algorithm, which is pretty smooth, to be honest with you. But the problem I have with that is it's kind of hard tracking pieces and looking ahead to your other pieces during F2L when you're using wide moves. So what I would have done instead is just to keep things simple and look at edge orientation. So basically looking at if this edge is oriented or not. In this case, it isn't. And how am I able to tell? Well, the top color does not match either the front or back color. So it would either be blue or orange if it was an oriented edge. But in this case, it's not. And so I know I have to rotate before inserting this pair. So I would have rotated this way and then did that to pair them up. And then I would have inserted into the back. And then for your final pair, you did a U, then a U prime, which is unnecessary. Then you paired them up like that, and then you rotated and inserted into the back. What I would have done, since I know I have to rotate already, is I would have rotated this way and then just done that, which is the same amount of moves. For PLL, you did this business, trying to recognize your case. So I'd rather have you do U moves as opposed to rotating your cube to recognize. And then going into your F perm, you had a slight regrip in trying to do your R prime. And I don't see the need for that because even with your thumbs in front here, you could still go R prime and then go into your F perm. And then you tried doing a push U at the end, but then you missed it, so you plus 2'd. On your second solve, you had a good cross. So you started off with green in the incorrect slot, but then you notice that blue would have paired with, or would have aligned rather with green, so you inserted that, and then you did a D prime to align the two, and then you inserted orange like that, and then you went U, well, wide U, R prime, wide U prime. 6 move cross, which is good. And then for your first pair, you did a U, noticed these two, and you went like that to pair them up, and then you inserted into the left slot. Going into your second pair here, you noticed these two, and you immediately went into inserting them into the back, which I can appreciate the good look ahead, but the problem here is that you've solved diagonal pairs. And the problem with that is that in its worst case, having all the pieces in incorrect slots, you would have a tough time solving your F2L. So luckily that was not the case because you had these two on top. And so you did a U2, then you rotated, did another U2, and then you went into solving this. And then you had, again, good look ahead, you did a U2, and then you paired these up and inserted into the back. Another small thing, so for this pair, the way you finger tricked it, you did a pinch L prime, U prime L to pair them up, and then you did a U2 again with your left hand and inserted that way. I'm not saying the way you did it was wrong, but then knowing that I have a U2 right after pairing them up, I would have rather did a L prime, push U, L, and then done my U2 as opposed to doing my pinch and then having to overwork my left index finger. And then for OLL, you did this algorithm, which you had good finger tricks for. And then for PLL, you rotated again to recognize this J-perm, and then so for your third solve, although your cross took you 7 moves, you rotated mid-cross, which is something you want to avoid. So what I would have done is notice that this is a bad edge and is the only bad edge because every other edge can be inserted in one move. And so holding orange in front of me, I'd want to solve this as soon as possible. So I would go R prime, F, D to insert this. L, R, U, F2 prime. And then for first pair, you did this to recognize this edge in the back along with this corner, which is a bad habit. You want to recognize using the U layer instead of having to rotate like that. But then this was a good insert. So you did this, and then you took this out with a U2, which pairs them up, and then you inserted. And the next pair you saw was these two. You did a U, but you kind of hesitated going into that. You re-gripped like this and inserted into the back. So I just want to talk about your finger tricks here. There is no need to re-grip like this during F2L. You always want to limit your re-grips. Instead, you can just still, from home grip, you can still insert this edge like that with a push U. So your next pair that you solved was these two. But then from when you were solving this pair, this should be an easy enough case to where you're not even looking at what you're doing there in the back and actually focused on what's your next pair. So that should have been what you noticed and immediately should have gone from that angle. But instead, after solving this pair, you did a U, and then you had to do an additional U2 before being able to solve it into the front. And then for your last pair, you had a really good back insert here. You went like this. And then when it came to OLL, you did a U prime and realized you actually meant to go the other way. So you did a U2. That's an extra move. And then I'm not going to do exactly what you did for this case because your algorithm it seems like you had bad finger tricks for it. And so what I would recommend is that you look for good finger tricks for that algorithm that you use. And if you can't find good finger tricks for it that work for you, then I would suggest changing your algorithm altogether. So this is the one I use. For this case, I would actually hold it like this, and I would go and then for PLL, you did this business again, trying to recognize what case you have from this angle, because that's how I usually hold my cube. Some people hold it like this, in which case this would even be easier to recognize this case. But then from this angle, I would notice that this is a checker pattern. So it's green, red, green, red, green. So then I would have noticed that this is an R perm, in which case I would have just done that. And then this would have confirmed for me. But then you and I use a different R perm. Yours goes like this. Which seems to be a smooth one, but you had a lockup there. So I just recommend that you use a PLL trainer to just drill your PLL cases, not just to be able to execute it smoothly, but then also to train your recognition as well. So for your fourth solve here, not only did your cross take you 10 moves, but then you rotated more than once. So I just want to show you what I would have done. So this is a bad edge and is the only bad edge on the cube. So again, you want to solve these as soon as possible, right? So holding this in front, I'm actually going to leverage this orange edge to insert this blue edge. I'll show you what I mean. And so I'm going to go U prime first, so I can just get this out of the way. Then R prime, which aligns this blue to the green. And then B prime. And then I'll just insert this L. And then F2 to insert that. And then R2, D2 to align the cross. So after solving cross, you immediately went into solving this pair, which is an excellent back insert. But I just want to show you a minor finger trick adjustment you can do just to make this more efficient. So you put it here, and then you went pinch U, pinch RU, R prime, and then you used your U, your index finger for the U, and then again the third time you used your index finger for your U before inserting that into the bag. So what I would rather have you do is still start with the same pinch RU, R prime, and then follow with, instead of your index finger, your middle finger to connect that U, and then like that. Going into your next pair here, you notice this mislotted pair, and you solved it into the back, which is great. I just want to point out that you actually have a really good habit of backslotting your first F12 pairs, which gives you a lot of room to work on look ahead for your next two pairs. So that's great. However, you did a whole bunch of extra moves here. So you did a wide R, then you did an R prime, R, wide R prime, then you did an R, then a U2, then another U2 until you did another R, well, wide R, and then you did a B2 to insert that pair into the back, and then wide R prime, which solves the back slot, right? So I guess those extra moves in the start was a recognition problem, which you should solve just by doing slow solves and also drilling your F2L using an F2L trainer. For your next pair, you did that, and you notice this case, but then you, for some reason, went for this case, which, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it if you're comfortable going into solving that. So you rotated, and then you did U prime, L prime, U, L, U prime, L, U2, L prime to solve it into the back, which gives you this really good case, which you solved like that. But what I like to do is when I see a hard case like this, I'd rather go for the easier one first, which usually leads to another easy case. For OLL, you recognized again like this, but I just want to focus on your finger tricks here. So I'm not going to do what you did, but I would like to show you what I recommend doing in terms of finger tricks for this case. Right after solving OLL, your cube was already in this position. So this is more than enough information to tell you that this is an R-perm. And you can tell by these headlights and then this block that's right behind it. So no need to be doing all that, especially at your stage. Sub-20, you should be learning two-sided PLL recognition. You did this, which is the same algorithm I use, but then after your first U2 prime there, you did a U prime, or an R prime rather, and then a U2 prime again with the same hand, and then you solved this case, which is overworking your left index and middle fingers. So I would rather have you do your R perm like this. So same way you did it, even with this U2 prime, and then after the R prime, instead of doing a U2 prime again with your left hand, you do it with the right hand, and then that's a lot more efficient. For your final cross here, it was an 8-move solution, but then there's two things I noticed. Number one, it had bad finger tricks, and number two, you actively look at your cross while solving it. So you don't actually plan your cross out during inspection, which being sub-20, this should be a skill set that you already have. I just want to show you what to look for as you're planning. So this is a bad edge. So this you want to solve as soon as possible. And the pieces you want to avoid are the good edges that are aligned. So red is aligned with itself, and same goes for green. So holding green in front of me, I would go D, and then L, so I can just get blue out of the way. Now it's a good edge. And then I would continue with D again. Then I would go B to insert blue, and then L, F, which is a 6-move solution. Going into your first pair, you had a recognition problem again. You had a bunch of extra moves that you did. So you did U prime, U, R prime, U prime, and then you noticed these two. Then you did U, and then you paired them up like this, rotated, and then inserted into the back. Then your next pair you noticed was the red-blue pair, and you found it by doing this. And then you did a U2, then did a U, and then you paired them up like that, then rotated and inserted into the front. So a couple of things here. Number one, I noticed that you have a bunch of lockups during your solves, not just in this solution. So what I can recommend is that you play around with the settings of your cube. Now that alone might not accomplish that for you, which is why the second thing you can do is to slow down your solves. So a lot of people like to achieve Yihang level TPS, which granted it does help as you're beginning, especially when you start using beginner CFOP, because that's how you progress, right? But then as you become faster, TPS serves you less, and efficiency is what you should be focused on. And so slowing down your solves is definitely going to help you be a lot more efficient and maybe even help you achieve faster times. However, what I would have done for the red-blue pair is, even if I did a bunch of U moves to kind of realize that both pieces are on top, I would have noticed that this edge is not oriented. So the top color being red does not match the front or back of my cube. So then I would have known to rotate anyway. And then noticing from this case, I would have just inserted into the front, which is exactly what you did. But then I would rather have the rotation first out of the way and then just get into the algorithm all at once, instead of doing half the alg and then rotate and then do the other half, because in my opinion, that's slower. And then for your next two pairs, it was all standard. So for this pair, you did this. And then for your last one, you did this excellent solution for the back slot. And then for all you recognized again like this, which should be an easy all to recognize, dude. So I think this is just a habit at this point. I don't believe you're actually trying to recognize what all you had. I believe you just had a habit now of just rotating your cube basically for recognition. And then for your J perm, again, you recognize like that. And even after all that, you still did this. And then you wanted to go into your J perm and realize you made a mistake. Then you started it from this angle. So bit of a lock up there. And that was your last solution. If you're still watching at this point, thank you for your retention. And again, if you would like to have your solves critiqued, it's not just a video that I do, it's a whole Google Doc with just extensive information on how to improve your solves, what you did move for move, and it's entirely for free. So again, if you want to have your solves critiqued, join my free community, link in description.